we've all heard the expressions, it happens for a reason. If God brings you to it, he'll bring you through it. Well, sometimes I don't know, and we're going to find out if my guest today agrees with that. I had a couple different people tell me, you need to talk to Wendy McClelland. She's got an amazing story. So I did, because I love meeting new people and I love hearing people's stories. And that's why I have my show, because we all have something to learn from each other and we all have a story. And when you have a conversation with somebody, that's when you really get to the meat of who somebody is. That is my favorite thing in the world, and that's one of the reasons why I have my show. So Wendy McClelland is a certified guerrilla marketing coach and a past nominee for Canadian Entrepreneur of the Year. She built her original business after a divorce left her with 3 kids under 10 to raise. Holy Hannah! She built her clientele by doing 10 cold calls by 10 a.m. every day. A small taping business grew into a website that the New York Times chose as one of the best business sites on the net. The same day they chose Microsoft, and a reputation as an expert on doing business online. As the business became successful, she was traveling throughout North America, sharing the potential of the internet with other entrepreneurs. In 1999, Wendy contracted an E. coli infection that ate away portions of the lower 3 vertebrae and 2 discs in her spine, destroyed 1 kidney, and damaged her corneas and brain function. After 63 days in the hospital and then many months in a body cast, which was neck to knee, to fuse bone fragments back around the spinal cord, I could not imagine that. It took over a year to learn to walk again without assistance and regain mental functions. She chronicles her recovery and new life in her book, 27 Steps to Freedom, What Learning to Walk Again Taught Me About Success in Business and Life. Today, Wendy provides marketing support and strategy for businesses who want to leverage social media to grow their brands. Welcome, Wendy. I'm so excited to have you here.
Thank you so much. That was a lovely introduction. I appreciate it.
Oh, well, you are a very lovely person. We had a chance to have a great conversation a little while back so that we could get to know each other. We were connected on social media, but we hadn't had that conversation to really to get to know each other. So it was a fascinating conversation. And I will ask you, do you believe that everything happens for a reason?
Well, that's an interesting question. You know, I always, I used to believe that. And lately I've been doing a lot of work on spirituality and just analyzing life. And I'm not sure, but what I do believe is that every situation that we go through has something to teach us. So that's kind of where I'm at now, because I know for myself, one of the things I did in those 63 days I was in hospital was I would wake up each morning and say, okay, what lesson do I need to learn today? And so I believe every situation we go through, good or bad, has something to teach us if we're open to it. And
Absolutely.
So that's kind of my philosophy now.
So that is just amazing. So, and you had 3 children. Were they still really young at the time that this happened, or how did you manage?
They were all under 14, and actually, no, sorry, they were all under 12. And my ex-husband and his new wife took the children, and the hardest part of the whole thing for me was that I didn't get to live with my kids for almost a year. And that was really tough. I had a lovely picture of them on my bedside table at the hospital. So every morning and, you know, throughout the day, that was what I would look at. And that was kind of my goal. Got to get back to my kids, got to get back to my babies.
Yeah. I can't imagine being away that long. You must have had times where you got like really pissed off, and you know, we go through that cycle of when things happen. We go through that whole cycle of depression and anger and sadness. And what were the thoughts when that happened, when you ended up in the hospital? I can't imagine that long.
There were all those emotions that you mentioned and so many more. The anger, I think, and I talk about this in my book, is the anger was at myself, really, that I had pushed my body so hard and that I allowed myself to get this sick. And one of the lessons I had to learn was forgiving myself. And I think any person that's gone, especially a woman who has young children, or a man who has custody of his small children, is when you go through a divorce, your self-esteem takes a real knock. And so you want to rebuild that. And for me, creating this business and then it becoming successful was really, it was part of my rebuilding of my self-esteem. And so I pushed harder than I should have. I was traveling, quite a bit, normally when the kids were either with their dad or staying with a really good friend of mine. But I also was burning the candle at both ends. I wanted to be at those school performances and the sports practices, so I would work until 2 and 3 in the morning on work stuff. And
we do that.
I was just we do. And I was just pushing my body so hard. And so the anger came at, Wendy, you didn't have to push quite that hard. And then the sadness too, and the fear, because the first night that I actually went into the hospital, I had phoned a friend, and I'd been really sick for about 6 weeks, and the doctors couldn't figure out what was wrong with me, and I'd actually given up custody of the kids a couple of weeks into it because I was so ill. And I phoned a friend one night, and I said, I can't even walk. You've got to get me to the hospital. And when I went in, they started doing tests and trying to find a blood pressure reading for me. And I'd been hemorrhaging for 6 weeks, and so they could barely discern a blood pressure reading for me.
Whoa.
And the doctor said, we need to give you massive blood transfusions tonight. And I wanted to talk to someone about it, someone close to me. And my parents were out of the country at the time, but would be back the following day. And I said, well, my mom and dad are away. Can I wait till they come home and talk to them? And he said, no, if we don't do this now, you'll die before morning. So a big part of what I was dealing with was fear of dying. And even then, when I had the transfusions, and I live in a city, but it's not a large city, and so I was transported into the largest city near me, Vancouver, British Columbia, into the big hospital there. And even then, the first 3 weeks was touch and go. They put what's called a PICC line right into my heart to get the antibiotics into me. They gave me the strongest stuff they had, and even then, they couldn't get the infection under control. So the fear of dying was a really big one. And so I really had to work through and confront that. And my own biological mother had died when I was a child. So that was also in my head, like, I'm going to leave these children without a mother, right? So had to work through that, which I did. And I think the biggest thing there was I thought, okay, if I die, how is this going to go for my kids? And I thought, okay, if I know I'm going to die, what am I going to do? I'm going to, make videos for them. I'm going to write letters to them. I'm going to encircle them in a community of family and friends that love them and will support them. And I figure, if I have such a good community already, that yes, my kids would mourn my loss, but they would be okay. That was my biggest priority, is making sure that they had the support. And once I was able to kind of work through that, yes, it was awful to think I wouldn't have been there for all of their lovely milestones in their lives, but I knew that they would be okay. And that allowed me to kind of relax a little bit and focus more on my own healing versus panicking about leaving my children.
Yeah, such a big thing for parents to have that thought. When I ended up disabled on my back for 4 months, not anything near what you were going through, but, there was this sense of, my son was 7 at the time, and I thought, is this it? Am I going to be like this forever? Like, what kind of life? I'm never going to be able to do anything with my son. Right away, your mind goes to your children and having to deal with that then.
Yeah, absolutely.
Wow, that is so scary. That is so scary. So, what was the final pivotal thing when you were there and that you thought, okay, I'm going to be okay now. I'm going to be okay. Was it the mind shift mindset shift, or was it like, was it the doctor saying, okay, you're going to be okay now, that allowed you to feel that way, or just so
Yeah,
many things going on?
I think it was probably a combination of both, because one of the things I'm really big on is visualization. So every day I would, what they wanted to do is they wanted to open me up in the front, put in steel rods, close me up, shift me over, and do the same thing in the back. And I said, is there not another way? Because this surgery would have meant another 6 months in hospital and recovery. And I just said, is there not another way? And they said, well, we can try something really old-fashioned. We haven't, we don't really do this anymore. He said, but we can put you into a body cast and you can lie on your back for the next 4 months. And gradually learn how to walk again. And I said, well, let's try that. It's a little less invasive and it's a little less dangerous too, right? Yeah. So they did that. And when I left the hospital, I actually went and lived with my mom and dad, and they had they got a hospital bed in their home for me and took amazing care of me. But they had a flat driveway, and my goal was, like, when I was learning to walk again, was to get from their front door to the end of the driveway in one go. And it took me about 3 weeks to do it. And when I finally did, it was in the winter time, early January, and it's kind of cold here in Western Canada at that time. And it was nice and crisp. And as I got to the end of the driveway, I thought, okay, I'm on my way. Now I know I'm going to make it. And so walking back, for some reason on that day, I counted the steps, and it was 27 steps. So that's where the title of the book came from. And each one of those 27 steps is sort of a lesson that I learned along the way during my recovery. So that was the day that I kind of knew, okay, I'm going to be all right.
So you had a very successful business going on, and I know that's a big thing for entrepreneurs and solopreneurs, small business owners, is if something happens to me, what will happen to my business? Did you have to start all over again?
I did. I lost everything. At the time of my illness, I had my website was very popular, and this is the early days of the internet. This is late 1990s and early 2000s, and I was an internet pioneer. So I had a really good following, and I had a database built into my website with over 10,000 names on it. Someone bought my domain out from under me while I was sick, and so I lost my brand. I lost everything. And because I wasn't able to work for all that time, I did have some disability insurance, thank goodness, which I encourage all entrepreneurs to get.
Oh, yes, at least.
Which helps cover some expenses. But I did, because I really had no income for almost 2 years, I did end up going bankrupt and losing my home, the home that I had purchased after my divorce. And so I literally was starting from zero again. And that was really, that definitely, I will say, was a huge challenge. And I ended up actually going to work for a couple of different companies for a while, because I just physically, emotionally, and financially did not have the resources to start my own business up again. And so that steady paycheck with health benefits and that kind of thing was a nice cushion. And so it allowed me to kind of get back on my feet. And then as I was doing that, I was able to, to put a bit of cash in reserve and build things up, and then start my business back up again.
Mm-hmm. Wow. Talk about wipe the slate clean.
Yeah. Now, one of the things today, which is amazing and is much better, is if you, for myself, for example, I have about 10 digital courses that I sell online. So even if, like I mentioned to you before we went on air, I had pneumonia in February and was off, pretty much flat on my back for about 3 weeks, I was still making money because my digital courses continue to sell. And so that's one of the great things now, is that people can create content that sells even if they're not working.
Yes. Yeah, that's definitely something that we hear for people who are, small business owners, that, our business is us, is to have content, is to have things so that it's a little bit of an insurance to do that. Wow. Yeah, did you know that, did they tell you you may not walk, or that you would walk, it would take a while? And
yeah, they did say, because what started to happen when I was in the hospital and the antibiotics weren't working is more and more of the bones and discs were being eaten away by this bacteria, which I didn't know that bacteria could eat your bones.
Yeah.
And I was lying in the hospital bed, and they would, they come in numerous times in the day to check my mobility, and there were days when I could not lift my leg off the bed, like I was losing function. And so, there was that possibility for sure that I would not walk again if they couldn't get the infection under control.
So how are you today now physically, Wendy? Like, there must be some limitations for you, or...
Well, when the bone fragments fused, nerve endings were trapped in there. So I do live with pain all the time. So, and then some days it's manageable, and some days it's hard. And because of the way the nerves are being irritated in the bone, sometimes I'll put my foot down and not feel it hit the ground. So I've actually broken 3 bones in my leg since this happened, because I'll put my foot down and not feel it, and I'll fall and break a bone. So it still impacts me, but I'm really grateful to be alive, and obviously, and the pain. I work with a few different kinds of treatments and things to try and manage the pain, and I'm always trying to find new ways to deal with it. So, it will probably have lifelong implications for me, but it's just one of those things, really.
Yeah.
And,
But like you said, you're alive. You get to see your children. You get to be part of the memories that are made. I mean, I think that's our biggest fear as a parent. We won't see our kids grow up and finish school and become the people that we imagine that they would be when they were little babies.
Absolutely, absolutely. And now for me, I'm lucky I have 4 amazing grandchildren. So
yay!
So I have 4 amazing grandsons, and they're just the joy of my life, to be sure.
Nice. So that you started a new business after that, after you got, back on your feet. So was it the same? What is your business? And how did you go about doing that, rebuilding?
Well, I knew that I needed a hook. I knew I needed something that was going to make me stand out in the marketplace if I was going to jump back in, because in the 5 years where I was in recovery and working for other people, the marketplace had gotten more and more crowded, and there was a lot more people vying for the attention of the small business owner. So I became a certified guerrilla marketing coach through J. Conrad Levinson, who wrote all the guerrilla marketing books, because that was going to be something that was going to give me some new skills and also make me stand out. And I was the first one in British Columbia, where I lived, to get that certification. So I always think if you can do something that no one else has done, that kind of gives you an edge. So I did that training and began going back to doing similar work I'd been doing before, working with small businesses. And today what I do is I work with small to medium businesses and help them understand how to create a successful strategy for social media, picking the right platform, knowing what to post, when to post, and how to build your brand online. I do a lot of speaking about that to business organizations. And I have, like I said, I've got 10 or 11 digital courses that I've created. And now I'm working on a couple of new books that I'm writing. So, that's kind of where my business is at right now.
Did you know through this whole thing, or at some point, that you were going to start a business again? You just knew it was just in you that you were going to do it again?
It's in me. I started my first business when I was 19 years old. I incorporated my first company at 19. So, yes, I knew that it's kind of in my blood that I have to be an entrepreneur.
Yeah. What was that business at 19?
Oh, well, I had the audacity to think that I could teach people, most of them twice my age, how to apply for a job and do well at it. I was actually working at the time in a large lumber company, one of the biggest in Canada, and I was in their HR department, and I was seeing all these resumes come in that were so bad. And I thought, I can teach people to do this better. So I formed this company, and I would rent a hotel meeting room, and I would teach people how to write a great resume and a cover letter, and then we would do practice interviews. And so that was my first business.
Wow. That's so neat. Yeah. That is so cool. Yeah, I think if it's in you, it's just in you. You're always seeking for that moment, that
Hmm.
opportunity you're just never quite settled. You're itching.
Yeah.
It's just who you are. It's like breathing.
Yeah, it's absolutely true. And now two of my daughters, I have a son and two daughters, and both my girls have their own businesses. So
Oh,
it
nice.
must be in the genetics.
Nice, nice. I'd like to see my son do that too, because I think it's really going to be iffy out there for this next generation to
Yeah,
find their way.
it is, and there's no stability anymore. Like nobody stays with a company for 20 or 30 years anymore. So I've always told my kids, whatever skill you can pick up, grab it. It doesn't matter if it's learning a bit of graphic design or learning what vegetables to plant or how to change the oil in a car. Like every skill you can possibly pick up in this life, grab it because you never know when it's going to come in handy for you.
Absolutely, that's a good tip. Yeah. Absolutely. I think they're gonna have to really find their way. My son's gonna be 15 next month, and that's what I try to instill is to pick these things up, and that you're capable, and sort of steering him to. I don't steer him towards college and university. I think
Hmm.
um, I think God, I don't want him to come out of school with major debt. But if it's something he's big into sciences and things like that, so I don't know what kind of business on his own he could create around that, but he may end up going to
Well,
school, who knows? But I definitely
yeah.
want him to be aware of what's going on. And now I see a new program that started. I don't know if it's just in my area, and maybe you've heard of it. There's this new, I think it's through the government of British Columbia, and it's for like 15 to, I don't know, 20 something, that they will teach them about a business idea and how to go
Oh,
about putting it together and creating a business plan and seeing whether it's viable and all these different. And I saw that and I thought, oh, I'm putting my son in that. He's going to be 15
yeah,
next
that's
month.
awesome.
I
That's
think that is
awesome.
a
Yeah, I haven't heard of that.
great,
Yeah.
yeah, I saw it. And I don't know if it's just here in my city or if but I know it's the government, but I'm not sure if it's
Yeah.
just like local or what it is. But I think that we're seeing more and more things like that because it is
Oh,
so unstable out
absolutely.
there. People are losing their
Yeah.
pensions.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah. And
scary.
and because technology is changing so fast too, we need to be able to. We don't need to teach children what to think. We need to teach them how to think and
Yeah.
how to problem solve and how to work with a team and all those skills that are going to be part of this future. Because the world is changing so fast that we need to teach our children how to adapt to that.
Absolutely. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Adaptability and resourcefulness
Hmm.
are very important things to have.
Yeah,
Very
and
important.
problem solving. I have my oldest grandson is 7. And his brother is 3, and I looked after them for 4 days while my daughter and husband went away. And over the weekend, I found myself doing the teaching the older one, especially problem solving skills. Like when his little brother did something and they had one toy and and each one wanted it, and I said, okay, let's sit down and think about this. How can we make this fair? And I could see him learning that skill, and I thought, okay,
Hmm.
I'm doing my job. This is good.
Way to go, Grandma.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's so true. So true.
Yeah. Yeah.
So has your philosophy on life changed from before to now, to after all that?
I don't really think it has, because losing my mom when I was 8 years old really impacted me and made me realize how short life is. And then I also had another life-threatening illness when I was 19, and again at 29 I nearly died. So for
Oh,
me,
Wendy.
I know. So
Jeez, woman.
I know. I keep saying I'm here for a reason. There's got to be a reason I've gone through all this. But I think I've always just really appreciated life, and I, I feel excited and lucky to be here. And for me, I talk about this in the book. I do struggle with bipolar depression, and so I'm battling that on the same side as I'm really grateful to be here. But other days, when the depression is really bad, it's the opposite of that. I'm not happy to be here. And so
Hmm.
it's kind of a dual track of, okay, I've got all these great things happening in my life, keep remembering that, and and working through the depression stuff. So I would say my attitude hasn't really changed. I'm really grateful to be alive, and there's a lot of things I really still want to do, and places I want to visit, and stuff like that. So,
do you take care of you?
Changed.
Is self-care a big part of your life?
That. I'm working on that. It's so hard for us women because our lives are so much about caring for others, and I think it's just innate in women to be caregivers, and I think it's a genetic and biological and an evolutionary trait that we provided the care and the nurture, and it's hard. It's just one of those things. For most women, it's part of us. And once my kids were grown, now it's my grandkids and my parents, worrying about them. So, but I am working on it. I truly am.
Good. So we mentioned your book a couple times, 27 Steps to Freedom, What Learning to Walk Again Taught Me About Success in Business and Life. Can people get that on your website, which I didn't mention? Wendy's website is www.WendyMcClelland, that's McClelland.com. WendyMcClelland.com. So can they buy that book through your site?
They can. It's actually on Amazon as well. So
Excellent.
They can just go to Amazon and type in 27 Steps to Freedom, and they will find the book there.
So what is let us know, sort of give people an idea of the book. Is it your story? Is it workbook?
Yeah, it's my story from actually as a young mom when my son was really small, and I talked through some of the experiences that happened with him and the lessons I learned from losing a child and having to move quite a bit with my husband and just different life experiences. And then I talk about going through a divorce and how that impacted my life and coping skills I developed there. And then I talk about the illness and the 27 things I learned. So in there's things like forgiving yourself, learning how to, for me, a big one was learning how to ask for help.
Oh,
because I'm a firstborn child, type A personality, do it yourself, and learning to ask for help. And then my two biggest ones, I would say, and they're the final two lessons in the book, are gratitude. So I have a practice of every night before I go to sleep, I think of 5 things that I'm grateful for that happened that day. And then the final lesson in the book is sharing what you've learned. So each one of the lessons in the book, I give a little story and then a way that you can use that in your own life.
Oh, nice. Nice.
Yeah.
I love books like that.
Yeah, and it's not a thick book. It's I think it's I don't know. It's a smaller book that you can just pop in your purse or throw in your briefcase or have it in your desk drawer. And when you're looking for a little inspiration, you can open a chapter to, building a team, forgiveness, asking for help, gratitude, whatever the mood you're in. You can just read a quick chapter. And most of the chapters are only 2 or 3 pages. So it's a book that you can pick up and put down, quickly. And
get something out of it right away. Nice. Yeah, exactly. So you're working on more books. What are you working on?
I am. Well, the next one that I'm working on is actually a real departure. It's a totally different book. It is, I'm collecting stories from women around the world who have been negatively impacted or hurt by fundamentalist religions. So I've got a woman from Brooklyn who is very different. A woman in Brooklyn who is part of a very Orthodox Hadassic Jewish community. I've got an ex-Muslim in Iran who lives in hiding because she is no longer Muslim. I have got ex-Mormons. I've got Catholics. I've got Christians, Sikhs. So I'm collecting these women's stories because often in faith, women's stories are not heard. It's all about the men, and the men are in leadership positions. And this is not a book bashing religion. This is a book of allowing women's voices to finally be heard. So I'm collecting these stories and doing interviews with these women and putting this book together.
How did you find these women all over the world?
Social media.
Isn't it amazing, social media?
It is.
It's unbelievable.
It is. And I put the call out and, on Facebook and Twitter mostly. and then started getting leads, and then people would say, oh, can I share this with my friend or in this Facebook group I belong to? And so, the stories start coming, and I created a questionnaire for people to fill in, talking about their story and their history and all this kind of stuff. And then they could do it anonymously if they wanted, but if they were open to being further interviewed, they could give me their contact information. Yeah.
Wow. It is. I would imagine that some of these stories just break you open.
They do, and there's and we don't really know what goes on in a lot of these different religions. So, we may consider them to be benign. Like, you drive by and you may see, a Mormon building or a Jehovah's Witness or a Christian church, and you think, oh, that's nice. They go on Sunday or Saturday or whatever and do their thing. But there's a lot of very dark things that go on behind those walls, and most of it is against women and children. And so, some of it's starting to come out now in various places around the world. We're hearing about different things that have gone on. But I just knew that there was women, and I've had this older lady who is in her 70s now, and she was deeply affected by what happened to her in mainstream religion as a child, and never told anyone. And when I gave her this opportunity, it was just like, oh my goodness, finally someone hears my story.
Such a healing.
Because women, yeah, it was. It really was for her. And so I knew that I was kind of on to something. And I started doing this because I'm very active on Twitter, and my Twitter feed is very different. It's all about human rights and women's rights and the environment. So it's kind of my radical side comes out on Twitter. And I just started seeing all this stuff about women's voices being silenced. And we're not just talking about, faraway places. Like, there's women in communities in North America and Europe who are literally living in prisons that their families or their churches have created for them. And so I thought, these women need to be heard. And so that's kind of where the book idea came from.
Nice. That's a very important reason why you're still here on this earth, Wendy.
Oh, thank you.
I think that because it does provide a healing for these people. We all have that same feeling. We just want to be heard, that we're here for a reason, and that we matter, and that does that. You're allowing that opportunity for people.
Yeah. So I'm excited to get this book out. I'm hoping to have it finished in the next 5 or 6 months, and get it out there. And I have a documentary filmmaker that's approached me and asked me if she could do a documentary on the book.
Wow.
So that's really interesting.
That is so exciting.
Yeah. So kind of fun. I mean, it's a heavy topic, but I think I hope that it will enlighten people and, like I said, give women a voice and get people to think a little bit deeper about maybe, their own beliefs and what community they belong to, and how fair and how equal are they for women in those communities.
Yeah, absolutely. And then you're going to be at the Toronto Film Festival.
Oh, yeah, wouldn't that be exciting? Yeah,
that would be awesome.
Yeah.
Wow. You have had an incredible journey. So and there's another book you're working on, but that'll be after this one?
Yes. Well, the other one, I've got 2 that I've outlined, and one is sort of related to social media. And as human beings, from the beginning of time, we have been storytellers. We see the cave drawings of early man. And then we had, before people could read and write, there was the town crier, and he was the one person in town that could read something. So he would stand in the town square and read it. And then we had, the church, which most people in, 200 to 300 years ago were illiterate. So you go to church and your priest was the only one that could read the Bible. So you would go there on Sundays to listen to words that you might not normally hear. And so we're a world of storytellers, and that's what has the most impact for it, is stories. It's not facts and figures, it's stories. And
that's
today,
right.
Social media is just another tool for telling stories. And so I want to kind of work through the evolution of storytelling.
Oh, that is such a fascinating twist on that.
Yeah.
I love that.
And then And then the other book is a bit of a secret, so you'll have to wait until I'm close to hitting the button for publish on that one.
Oh, fascinating, fascinating. And they'll be able to find all this out on your website too.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes, yeah.
Excellent. Oh my gosh, you have so much great stuff. And be sure to check out, what's your Twitter handle for those that might want to follow you?
Yeah, for those, now I'm just going to warn you, trigger warning here. My Twitter feed is quite inflammatory, and I do cover a lot of really controversial topics, religion, women's rights, politics, animal rights, the environment. So if you're easily offended, you may not wish to follow me on Twitter. But my Twitter handle is Wendy Webb, so that's WendyWeb 47.
Nice. And you're also on Facebook, facebook.com/Wendy J. McClelland.
Yes. Yeah.
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 Oh my gosh, I can't wait till these other books come out. Holy cow. You definitely have a purpose here, darling. You need to be here. Well,
thank you.
So who or what inspires you? Because I know we all have these times where we do kind of are tired. We fall down. We have to get back into the groove. We need to find our groove, not just in life, but sometimes just a particular day. So what inspires you to get back up and get back out there?
I'd say there's a couple things. For me, my grandkids definitely. Those boys, when I'm coming over, I open the door and go, and they yell, "Nana's here, Nana's here," and that just, my heart just swells. And a second thing for me is animals. If I'm feeling down and I go for a walk and I can hug somebody's dog, the world changes. And so that animal therapy for me, just being around animals is just, there's something magical in that for me. And then when I'm feeling like I'm not good enough, I think back on things I've done in the past that I've done really well at. And it could be something like a big award, or it could be something small as when my daughter had her two sons, I was there for both of their births and cut the cord and, was right there with her. And so those are big moments in my life. And so I think back on those. And trying to surround myself with people that I can really be myself with and be 100% open with, that's really important. And cutting out the toxic people in your life, and we hear that quite a bit. But for me, it just means I want to be around people that I can help uplift and they can uplift me, and it's kind of an equal balance. It's not someone sucking the other person dry all the time.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, we definitely need to do that because things can be hard enough. We don't need the extra soul suckers around us, right? Man,
absolutely.
Man, what an incredible story that your life is. And be an inspiration for people who are going through something themselves. What are your tips, recommendations, strategies, things that people can try if they've found themselves in a place, maybe not as extreme as you, but found themselves, or they have lost things, or they're going through a medical condition and they need to get back their life? You had your 27 steps to freedom. Where can people begin, whether it's mindset or whatever that may be?
I think mindset is the number one thing. You really have to work on what information you're putting into your brain and what thoughts you're allowing in. And it's the most important, but it's often the most difficult. So one of the things that I learned was to really start to use visualization and develop it as a habit, so that each morning when you wake up and each night when you go to bed, you start to visualize what you want your life to look like. And you may not have a clear picture of it, but if you can even shift one little thing, like if you've got one issue in your life that's going really badly, and you shift your thinking about it, and you shift what that looks like for you, and you focus on it for 2 or 3 minutes, 5 minutes in the morning and in the evening. And for some people, it even helps to journal it, what they're writing in the affirmative. I am financially secure. I have this much money in the bank. I'm able to pay my bills, that kind of thing. So you're saying it in the affirmative now, and your brain starts to absorb that. One of the interesting things for me is I've always been intrigued by brain science. And because my brain was really damaged by the E. coli, I had to spend many months relearning a lot of skills because I had lost a lot of my language ability. And so I was rereading grade 1 and 2 books and math puzzles and things like that to get my brain function back. And I started learning more about brain elasticity and retraining the brain. And I learned that the brain doesn't know the difference between fantasy and reality.
That's right.
You can, and Olympic athletes use this all the time, is they will visualize themselves making that perfect dive or running that race and winning. And the brain starts to understand that this is the reality that is actually happening. And so when they're actually on that track or on that diving board, the brain just thinks, oh, it's another, I've done this a million times before. So that lesson is really important. If we can retrain our brains, then we can change the outcome that we have.
Mm-hmm. That's a perfect place to start. Absolutely. And I agree with you. Visualization is a huge part of my life, especially when I'm not well. And especially when I went through my own experience of being laid out on my back for 4 months. It's huge, 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 huge. Yeah. So I absolutely agree with you. And that's something that I tell people because I'm also a laughter yoga leader. And that's one of the big things is that we tell people is your brain doesn't know whether you could be fake laughing, but you're still getting the benefits of laughter. And the brain is fascinating. The mind is fascinating. And let's use it to our advantage instead of just letting it run amok and making us feel terrible. Yeah. Totally agree on the visualization. So I have one last... Before we wrap up, I have one last. I like to ask everybody this because I always find it so fascinating. If you could finish this sentence for me. Okay. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Wendy McClelland is...
Oh, good question. Oh, my gosh. Wendy McClelland is excited about the future.
Oh, that's perfect. That's all you need.
Yeah.
That's all you need.
Yeah.
Nice.
I think so.
Yeah. And we will just wrap it up beautifully with a bow right there.
Good.
Thank you so much, Wendy. Your story I was blown away the first time I talked to you a little while back. And I just cannot imagine, but that's why it didn't happen to me. And I am so glad that you are here doing these amazing things. I absolutely believe you have a purpose, and that's why you are here, is to help others heal. And I so look forward to your book on the storytelling and the women's voices and what they've gone through. And we're absolutely going to see you at the Toronto Film Festival.
Okay, well, I'll start visualizing that now. I'll put it on my dream board. That's a really good idea. Thank you.
Absolutely, because
it's been a pleasure.
We are on the cusp of things like this. We are on the cusp of needing something to shift, to change, to turn around. I think we're on that. We're at a tipping point.
Yeah, I would agree. For sure.
Yeah. So everybody that. Oh, well, thank you. I want everybody to go check out your website at www.wendymcclelland.com. You can find her on Facebook, Wendy J. McClelland. Reach out, and because she's just the nicest lady ever, as you can tell. And if you are struggling through something yourself, don't do it alone. We know how hard it is to ask. We both know that, and don't do it alone. You need a team. You need some people around you to help you through it. That's why we're all here. That's why we're all here together. So thank you so much, Wendy, for joining me again. It's an absolute pleasure to talk to you, and I look forward to seeing.
My pleasure too.
So I wish you a fantastic Friday and weekend, and I hope you stay
too,
healthy.
My dear. Yeah.
Through the rest of the
winter. We both stay healthy.
I know. This has just been a tough winter this year.
Yeah.
So Thank you again. Thank you, everybody, for listening. I hope you, I know you found some information. I know you found some inspiration through this, as I always do with every guest I have, because I have the best guests ever. So have a fantastic day, fantastic weekend, and I will see you here next week. And in the meantime, remember, you have the power within you. Bye for now.